welcome to the Pandaverse. This is Elgon Williams. I'm here with Christine Gabriel.
Hi, guys.
And we're going to talk to Jessica Reino. She's an author, an editor, and a senior literary agent. So she's a busy lady. She's decided to join us today. She has a new book coming out. This one's a nonfiction book. It's a writer's guide. So it's going to come out just in time for NaNoWriMo. And it's a really good book because I've read it. I read like a draft version of it like over a year ago. It's really it's a good book, and it's really friendly. It's well written, and
thank you.
can't say enough about it. So why don't you introduce yourself to everybody and
Sure.
let us know everything that you write. I know you do some children's things.
Yeah, so my writing journey as an author is pretty all over the place, which is kind of on brand and why I wrote this book. So it's good. So right now I'm an author. The WRITER'S ZEN is coming out. It started from a Twitter chat actually. So it was just a way to, publishing can be so behind the curtain, veiled things. No one knows what's going on, and I just wanted people to feel like they could come to one place to get information, because if you're not part of certain groups or you don't know who to speak to, it's not as accessible as it should be, or at least I felt that way. So that's why I started the Twitter chat, and then it just blossomed. It's been wonderful. We do it once a month, every Sunday at 8 Eastern, and it's hashtag the WRITER'S ZEN, and it just spiraled from there. I absolutely love writing. I have two, well, this was my second nonfiction book, but actually my genre is young adult, believe that one, like young adult contemporary and young adult paranormal. So Christine, I know you'd probably love to read that. That's what I'm focusing on now. I've written a picture book. I think that was in 2017 actually, called Symphony Hollow. So it was a lot of fun. I love, music. I like wordplay and all kinds of things like that. But I realized that picture books, consistently, they're very hard to write. So anyone who is like, oh, Kidlit is just easy because it's less than 800 words, it's really difficult. And I actually found my groove in writing young adults. So that's what I do now. But, my experience as an editor, as an author, and, just talking to everyone within the publishing community, I do like to write nonfiction when it's something I'm passionate about. So as you know, I have a ton of food allergies, and that was my other nonfiction book, was a food allergy nonfiction book for teenagers. So nothing else is published yet, but that's kind of where my author stuff is at.
Are you going to read us a sample from your new book?
Sure. So this is just from the ARC. So fair warning, I don't think a lot of things will get changed, but one thing that I do talk a lot about are the 3 C's. So it's craft, creativity, and confidence, because you need all of those in order to, write whatever you're going to write. So I'm not going to read the whole chapter, but I'm going to read that little section on creativity, because I think it's the most fun for right now. So here's the section on creativity. So whether you are meeting with your critique partners or beta readers in person, over video conferencing, which we do a lot now, or even through email, the conversations that they will inspire you to have will allow your creative thoughts to shine through and flourish. Sometimes you can be so close to your work that you don't see the possibilities that could actually enhance your work and creativity. By having these conversations out loud or in writing, it is forcing you to come up with a creative solution. Once that thought is put to the forefront, it can be a great springboard for further creativity and allow your ideas to flow. But let's face it, if you were lacking in creativity, there wouldn't be a manuscript or an idea for a manuscript in the first place. However, a lot of writers are hard on themselves. Are you guys hard on yourselves? Yes, I am too.
All the time. Guilty.
All the time, right? Right? Yeah. So we put a great deal of pressure on ourselves to be creative on demand, and instead of letting the creativity happen and flow. So of course, in order to finish a manuscript, you must be disciplined to get the words down. But sitting in front of a computer and demanding creativity to come by staring at that blank screen might not work for you. It's okay to live your life and step away from the actual act of writing. So I want everyone to say it with me. It is okay to not write every day. Do not feel guilty. Say it. Say it, everyone. Say it with me. Okay to not write
every day.
That's right. Do you feel better, right?
No.
Do you feel better?
Yeah.
It feels better. Just say it out loud. Say it out loud. It feels better when you don't feel like you gotta get rid of the guilt. So now that we feel better, right? The key to unlocking your creativity is finding what works for you. And for some people that does work, that you do have to designate a certain time and write every day. But personally and professionally, I found that many writers don't work that way. We just cannot. Ideas emerge by doing normal everyday activities. So much of what makes a good creative story is that it evokes basic human emotions. It makes you think, it leaves you feeling a certain way, whether that feeling is leaving you entertained or leaving you questioning your beliefs in the universe and the meaning of life. So what better way to evoke strong emotions and make you question the meaning of life than by living your own? Give yourself permission to focus on the things that you need to. Just be sure to carve out some writing time as well. This is where your confidence needs to come in. And by being confident in yourself, your abilities, and how you work best, this is the essence of the writer's zen. And that's a little excerpt.
Well, that's good.
That's nice. Yes, we should have shows like that more often. That's like really uplifting. Feel better now.
Feel good, right?
Yeah.
I don't feel guilty because I'm not writing right now. Yeah.
There you go.
So whenever you start to feel guilty, we'll just rewatch this.
Yeah, or I'll tell you anytime, be like, cut it out, stop feeling guilty. But yeah, it's just, I just find I do it myself. I'm like, oh goodness, like I can't do this. I have this to do, this to do. And then you're just so worried about not producing that it just drains and zaps your creative spark that you need to make your manuscript a manuscript. So yeah, it's okay. Give me permission.
I know a lot of people, a lot of writers, Christine and I have talked about this on the show before, that they keep a journal next to their bed, write down their dreams. The stuff that I dream is not really good content. That's not always good content for a book. It seems like it is at first, but then, as I start digging into it, it kind of falls apart.
But it makes you think, though, right?
Yeah, but it makes you think.
Yeah.
And then you sit down. You write something, and maybe that thought will come back into mind. It'll connect to something else that you've been writing, because you can't force things together. It's like putting together a puzzle, which is kind of odd because that's a metaphor in one of my books. But it's kind of like putting together a puzzle. You can't make the pieces fit. They have to slide together, perfectly.
Yeah, and your readers, I feel like your readers can sense that and feel that. And when, it's like the second book in a trilogy sometimes. It's like, okay, this is just a middle book so that we can get to the end. But yeah, things have to flow, organically, and that makes the best story.
One of the things that a lot of people that are watching this probably don't know, Jess was my editor for Becoming Superman. And I've told this story on videos before, but we were about a month from finishing the book and having the book published. Jess and I got into a chat. I don't think we were actually live chatting. It was like we were sending messages back and forth to each other. In the course of that, you told me that there's other material here that you could branch out on and do some things. And I said, yeah, I've thought about that, because I wrote Becoming Superman as a standalone novel.
Mm-hmm.
And that was how Pandamoon accepted it and everything else. in the course of us chatting back and forth, we plotted out 2 more books.
That was a great conversation. I love it. And look at what it's amazing. Like the world you created is just amazing.
And it ties into the Fried Windows universe too. Yeah. So sometimes you need some outside vision or some outside influence. You know, a lot of people talk about having a muse, but that a muse is kind of like, you know, an ethereal being that
I kind of look like that with my light now.
Yeah. So, but a muse can be, you know, somebody, you know, your significant other. It can be somebody you know. Mm-hmm. It can be somebody that you talk to regularly. It can be somebody at work.
Yeah.
I mean, you're limiting yourself if you're waiting for the muse to approach you in the ethereal realm. That may never happen.
Very true.
So the muse might be actually in front of you. It might be your pet.
Yeah. It's very true. Or even like in your most stressful moment, and even with the kids, and you're like, oh my goodness, what is going on? And then you just, you know, you have these epiphanies. And you're like, wow, I just figured out that plot point in the middle of all this chaos. And hey, it happens.
Our minds are not normal. So that's
right.
I just want to get that up front that, you know, every author I know is a little bit different.
And that's okay. Normal is overrated.
I agree.
And normal's like average. Nobody wants to be average.
That's
Nobody should want
to be.
I feel bad
average. For normal people. So Jess, tell us about your journey to Pandamoon. Tell us all the great things that like got you to us.
I love you guys so much. So I was deciding to branch out into editing. So I did start off as a writer, but my background was in, you know, the legal field, but most of what I did was edit briefs and all kinds of you know, legal things. So I was like, you know, I'd probably really enjoy editing books. I love reading, love doing that. So Zara, I just love Zara, thank you, because any ideas I have, like she's never like, no, that's an insane idea, like no, but she got my resume. I saw a posting on Twitter actually, and I sent it in, and she had sent me a message, and she was like, you have no experience. Why do you want to do this? And I said, you know, I honestly think I'll be good at it. I think that, you know, some of my skills are transferable. And she was like, let's set up a call. We got chatting, and she said she'd start me off as a proofreader and see how that goes. And it went wonderfully. And I love the community of Pandamoon, the, you know, family atmosphere, and just everyone's so supportive of each other. And just no matter where everyone branches off in your journey to, like if you told me when I started, you know, doing editing with Pandamoon that I'd end up being an agent, I would be like, no way, there's no way that you're doing that. But, you know, all of you just support me and everyone else and just where our strengths lie and opportunities. And that's amazing. And I love that. So that's how it actually started out. So Zara gave me a chance, and I think that, you know, I thank her so much, and I owe her everything for my publishing journey, really.
That's such a great story. And, you know, that really speaks volumes, because there's been a lot of authors we've had on our show, and a lot of them feel the same way. You know, they feel that it is a family community, and everybody really does try to help everybody else out. And it's just such a wonderful thing.
Yeah, it's great. I know, and you know, I haven't talked to you in a while too, but it's like old friends, and I love chatting with all of you, and you know what's going on in your lives outside of the work. And I remember even asking Zara, you know, like I don't know if I can edit anymore. I'm really interested in agenting, and she was like, "What are you doing? Why are you even questioning that? Like, do your thing, go out and do it, and keep writing books." And that's amazing. And I don't feel like you get that a lot in you know, especially, you know, when I had come from the corporate world. I did have some amazing bosses, absolutely, but you know, everyone at Pandamoon, I feel, is very, you know, interested in your, you know, to help you out and to get you where you want to be. So that's very special, and I appreciate that.
Well, I think it's very special that you came to be with us. So,
Wow.
So you started off being a literary agent
Oh,
on the
yes,
side, on the side,
on this side, yes.
and now you're a senior literary agent.
Yes, yeah, honestly, it really, agenting it's a lot of different jobs into one, and every agent is different. But you know, I love, you know, I call them my metamorphosis family too. So I'm with the Metamorphosis Literary Agency, and all of, you know, the agents, the authors, the interns that we have, everyone is very, you know, very much like the Pandaverse, and very supportive of, you know, whatever you're trying to do, the authors and work that we're trying to bring on. So I just have a great group of authors that I represent, so I'm very fortunate and lucky to do that. But it's a very eclectic group of authors. You know the types of books that I enjoy editing. So I'm not an agent who is just, you know, one genre. I am all over the place, but I love it. So yeah, I have I think about 19 to 20 authors right now with a lot of projects. So it's great. It takes, you know, all the aspects of editing. I'm an editorial agent, obviously, so I enjoy working with authors on those projects. You know, pitching to editors. It's a lot of, you know, just making connections and talking about, you know, the work, and getting to pick the projects that I want to work on is amazing.
out of all of your works, what would you say is your favorite?
That's a great question. That is, you know what? I think I actually have to tell you. So I do love the writers, and just because of what you know, how it just, I wrote it from my heart to the writers. So for my heart, that is like my favorite that I did. But I have a YA paranormal that I'm working on now that started off as a sweet romance. And then I scrapped it. I'm like, I'm going to make it kind of like horror and paranormal. So I'm still fine tuning that one, but it's been a lot of fun to write. So most fun would be that, and then the writers that would be like the book of my heart to other writers.
I'm really looking forward to the writer's zen. I think that it's going to be very helpful for a lot of authors out there that are kind of lost. You know, they don't know what to do.
Yeah.
I think a lot of authors would like to try NaNoWriMo. For the people who don't know what that is, it's like a national writing month is November. So it starts November 1st. You can sign up for it. And the goal is to write 50,000 words in 1 month. So if you do the math on that, since November's a 30-day month, it ends up being like 1,666 words a day is what you have to average. I figured that out in advance. I mean, my math skills.
Not a math person, but no, that's
most authors that I know can write somewhere between 2,000 and 2,500 words a day. And that's not saying that they write it every day, but you know, on the average, they can do that. But I think, you know, the challenge is when you're starting out, it's all right to write 800 words if you have nothing else to say. You know,
right.
just get your idea down and focus, and get used to writing, get used to the creative experience. And you may not succeed in 50,000 words, but you know, you might write 20,000 words, you might write 30,000 words, and you've got the nucleus of an idea going there. The other thing that NaNoWriMo challenges you to do is you don't try to go back and correct everything that you just wrote. You know, you need to do that at some point, but you don't need to do that while you're writing it. You know, get the idea down, get the plot down, get the character interactions down, and work on that level. And then you can go back and fix everything. And, you know, what you can't find to fix, you know, that's what editors are for. So,
exactly. Yeah.
I know several writers who also edit books for people. They're probably pretty good at editing their own stuff, but they don't rely on their own editing skills for their own stuff. It's like, lawyers don't represent themselves in court. And
So true.
it's kind of the same thing. And it's very natural for an author to read what should be there instead of what is there. And you'll skip over things when you're reading it. And that thing you skipped over is a mistake. Don't feel overly pressured to do 50,000 words the first time you try NaNoWriMo. But I also know a lot of people that have succeeded, and it led to publishing books for them.
Yes. Yep.
So it's a good challenge. Having said all that, and all the glories and everything, I have never done an NaNoWriMo.
Hey, that's okay. Look at you. I mean, you are a prolific writer, so that's fine.
The thing is, I don't think I could write on a schedule like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It would attack my creativity in some way.
I don't think Elgon would ever sleep. If he joined NaNoWriMo, he would never sleep.
Yeah, I'd just be writing for 30 straight days, and
Yeah, that wouldn't be good. That wouldn't be healthy.
I would come out with a Rip Van Winkle beard. I don't write as much as I used to write because I'm babysitting my grandson.
Oh yeah.
So we're doing adventures over there. I've gotten used to watching The Wiggles. There's a lot of content on Netflix that's geared toward children, and most of it's from the international community. So it's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, it's all dubbed, or they have subtitles on everything anyway, so that adults can figure out what they're saying. But
that's great, though.
He's 20 months and he's acquiring words, starting, building words. He can say 2-syllable words sometimes, which is amazing. Yeah. He can say again. If he wants you to do something again, he says again. So what's next for you? What's next in books?
So I'm really buckling down on the young adult stuff. So hopefully we'll see some of that later on. And I think that's pretty much where I'm focusing now. But that changes all the time. If I get inspired or someone gives me an idea or wants something else, I'm always up to writing challenges. So I think that's fun.
So what project are you working on today?
I am working on, I have a young adult, the paranormal one. So I must have gone through, and this is a great idea. I mean, just what we were talking about before is how you have an idea of how something's going to go. And then you get inspired to just, take one little subplot and then, oh my goodness, this is a much better story and more compelling. And, I had the same overall arc, I guess, and then I just threw some paranormal, some horror, just see where my mind goes, and it was a lot of fun. So that's what I'm finishing up on right now.
That's another thing that writers need to understand too, is not, we've discussed this before in other videos, but not everything you write is going to end up in a book.
I have a drawer full of just manuscripts that I started that but you can mash them together at some point maybe and make a separate complete book. But
that's why you keep it for 10, 15 years.
Yeah,
and then you're moving, and you say, I'm never going to do that. So,
I know, and I also have the same stuff on my computer, so it's like ridiculous that I'm keeping the hard copies. But sometimes I like to do writing in a physical notebook. Sometimes I have ideas on my notes, my iPhone, and my actual document will be on the computer on Word. But yeah, I like to switch it up, so I think that helps creativity too.
The first thing I wrote for becoming Superman was an autobiographical thing by the main character, was what I wrote. And I had intended to use that as a prologue to the book. I actually submitted it that way. It explained what was going on, in the character's life in the book. And there's a lot, of course, that created redundancies for the story later on.
Yeah.
So I went back and I edited it and I edited it, and it kept shrinking until it just got eliminated. So by the time you saw it, the prologue wasn't there.
Yeah, and wow, I didn't know that. See, you learned something new. That's great.
But a lot of people feel compelled to write prologues because they see them in other books. Sometimes that material is necessary to set the story properly. But sometimes the best thing to do is just jump right into the story and let the characters explain it to you. Let the reader follow what the characters are doing directly. Basically, what I'm saying is don't be afraid to cut things out of your book.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the stuff that you write in the book is written for your benefit, not the reader's benefit.
That is such a good point too. So I think a lot of even for myself, as an editor, an agent, and it is so much easier for me to be like, oh, okay, there you go. This is the part where we can work on. You could chop this, take this out. But if it's my own work, I'm like, I love, some characters have to die or they have to go, and everything should be moving the story forward. And sometimes you do have these adorable, side characters and you love them, but they don't move the story forward. They're not necessary and they have to get cut, but you need that outside person to tell you sometimes. But it is hard, but it could be like their own story or save it for later. So yeah, but things do need to get cut. It is sad, but it is true.
You cut them and they get relegated to the drawer.
Yeah, and they could be used later. We never like to throw anything away, but yeah, but I've got lots of throwaway. They've been in there for years, so maybe they'll merge later. Who knows?
When I was learning to write back in college, I generated about 20,000 pages of drawer stuff.
Yeah,
okay?
Yeah.
I mean, I stacked it in boxes because I used to buy typing paper by the box, the case.
Yeah.
I mean, I had a lot of term papers that I was writing too, but all the stories would get shoved in a box. And at some point I just said, I'm never going to do anything with that stuff. So I threw it all away. And a lot of people that I've told that to are like horrified.
Yeah.
Oh, what wonderful things you must have thrown away. And I said, no, trust me, it was all crap.
I'm sure there were good things in there, but yeah, you can transform them into another story.
The good things hang with you though.
Yeah, that's true. That's a very good point.
There are things in the back of your mind, and maybe you didn't write it clearly enough, or there's some reason why you set it aside.
Right. That's very true.
People, my advice to people, just don't be afraid to throw stuff away. And you may get 30,000 pages into a book and you're going, this is going nowhere.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, you're never going to submit it to anybody as is. So why don't you just set it aside and start over? Maybe that's what you need to do. And then 5 months later, you go, okay, this 20,000 pages that I put together here kind of fits in front of that 30,000 page or 30,000 word thing.
Right.
And you go.
Isn't that what Seth did? He submitted, and then he rewrote the whole thing in a different person.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. It is crazy. And then trying to figure out if you want to do, third person, right, close third person, first person. Yeah.
I'd always written in third person because the books that I read were always in third person.
Yeah.
And I felt like that's the way that you write a novel, and people who write novels in first person are cheating somehow. They're making the characters way too intimate with the reader, because the reader's reading it and it's like they're identifying directly with the character because they're using personal pronouns. Also, the challenge of writing in first person is not starting with I. Every sentence.
First person.
Every sentence.
I also write in first person.
Well, the thing is, though, I think most people do now. Most people do now. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's one of the trends that I see in literature is, people use first person a lot now. And the first book First
I
book
thing.
the first book that I wrote in first person was Fried Windows. I submitted it to Pandamoon kind of on a lark. It's kind of like situation that you were talking about.
Yeah.
I got an email from Zara saying Pandamoon's accepting manuscripts. I have no idea how she got my email address, but
Oh, wow.
but
Oh,
it was out there. Okay, and I belong to a writers club, online writing community. The story had evolved from a poem that I wrote, which I'm not a poet.
I was going to say you
Okay.
write poetry too. I didn't know that.
No. Well, I have written poetry, but most of the poetry that I write comes out sounding like a very bad limerick. So I don't concentrate on writing poetry. Having said that, I do have a poem published. I have won awards with poetry. I wrote a poem that was in a format that's recognized as poetry, and I didn't realize it. I thought it was something I invented. Because I don't read that much poetry, so I'm not experienced. And somebody at the writing community, because I posted it because I was constantly getting people saying, "Why don't you write a poem? Write a poem, write a poem. Poem will make you more creative." And I said, I suck at poetry. But I wrote a poem about a kid that was going to a carnival. All the smells and all the excitement and everything like that, and everybody liked that. I got rave reviews on the poem from the writing community, and I thought they were just being nice to me because well, it's his first try, so don't let's encourage him. So I wrote a few other poems down the line, and one of the people that posted a lot of poetry didn't do prose that often, so I was always encouraging her to write prose.
Yeah.
She would critique my stuff, and she said, "Oh, you're writing in this format." And I go, "That's a format?" But she was very learned on poetry, so I learned a lot from her, from that interaction. But what I learned from writing poetry is you learn the value of each and every word, and structuring it into meter and tempo. And you don't always want to write poetically when you're writing prose, but it doesn't hurt.
Right.
I mean, there's sometimes where it's a value, and it'll actually force you to look at every sentence as you're writing and make sure that this sentence is necessary, and this sentence is necessary, and this sentence isn't necessary. So that you can go back in revision and you can look at things more objectively that way. So there's a value to playing with poetry, even if you don't consider yourself a poet. Like, I don't consider myself a poet, but I look at things differently because from having that experience. Now, after I had that great experience of everybody loved this thing that I wrote, I sat down and I started writing a story along the same lines, and that's where Fried Windows came from.
Wow.
So you never know where things are going to come from.
That's very, very true.
And Fried Windows started off being 16 short stories that had a common set of characters and an overall theme. It kind of got cobbled together in my mind as I was going to start sending them out to magazines. I sent one of them, one chapter, one story that ended up being the first chapter. I sent it out to a magazine, and I was sure that the magazine was going to take it, and the magazine rejected it. But I'd gone through and I'd dressed up all the other 16 stories, in preparation for sending them to a magazine.
Yeah, and look now, you have a published book, an awesome published book.
Yeah, it's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. So, the 16 chapters that I had, I started seeing it more as a book with the 16 stories. So I put together the 16 chapters and added some filler material. So I ended up with about 25 chapters. continuous material. I was thinking about self-publishing that when I got the email from Zara.
Wow. Yeah, see, and what I love to tell people too is that there's so many different ways you can publish, and you just have to choose what's best for, you and your work. So that's amazing though. I didn't know that. That's great.
Yeah, I said, what the heck? I got a manuscript ready. I'll just send her this. And I expected it to get rejected like, the other gazillion things that I'd sent out to people. Usually that's what happens, is it gets rejected. Yeah. I sent it out on a Friday, I think. It was either a Thursday or a Friday I sent it out. And like the following Monday, I get an email back and said, congratulations on your manuscript. I'd like to set up a phone call to discuss it. And I'm like reading it, and I'm reading the email, and I'm going, they want to talk to me about this? I actually sent that email to a couple of people to verify that I was reading it the right way. We scheduled a phone call, and I talked to Zara, and they decided to pick up the book, and that was how I got involved with Pandamoon.
That is, and that's a great way, because I know a lot of authors with rejections. It's no one likes to get rejected, and but it happens. But it can make your trajectory into something more amazing down the line. So look at that's an amazing story.
Well, rejection is, I've been in sales for a while. And that's kind of an odd fit for an author, because authors tend to be kind of reclusive and shy and retiring. And sales, I sold cars for a summer. Okay.
Did you really?
Yeah, wow. that got me out of my shell.
Wow.
Yeah, I'd had a lot of retail sales experience, but that's completely different than selling cars. It's completely different than going door to door selling stuff, and I've done some of that too.
Did you really?
Things that go contrary to your grain.
Yeah.
You have to step out of your comfort zone. I found it necessary to, feed my family, and I had to go do what I had to do, and I had to learn not to be so self-conscious and everything. And I put on a persona of a salesperson every time I went to work. But one of the things that I learned from the sales process is that people are inclined to tell you no.
Very true.
Okay. And sometimes what they mean when they say no is not yet.
Right.
So what you have to do is find out what is their resistance to saying yes to you. And you have to attack it from that direction. That translates over to publishing very, very well, because when a publisher or a literary agent or an editor or whoever you've contacted with your manuscript says no to you, they're basically telling you not yet. Your book's not ready yet. You need to go back and fix some things. Sometimes, especially editors will tell you what they don't like about your book sometimes. And you've got to take the criticism as it's intended. I think this is a good story, but you need to do this and this and this, to get it, to make it better. So when a publisher rejects your book, one or two things happen. Either they read the first 4 or 5 pages of it and didn't like it and rejected it, or they read the first 2 or 3 paragraphs and rejected it, or they just didn't have time to read it, so they're rejecting everything in their to be read pile. So there's usually those things that happen. And occasionally you'll have a publisher that reads the entire thing and then rejects it. And sometimes they'll send you a letter, a form letter. And this is basically what happened to Seth.
Yeah.
He got rejected. He approached Zara to ask her why the book was rejected. And Zara usually doesn't do that. But Zara liked the story enough that she told him what was wrong with it. And then he went back and he fixed it.
Wow.
The message is don't give up. If you believe in the story, believe in it enough to keep pursuing it. And if all else fails, self-publish it. You know, I would recommend that you get a good editor before you self-publish, because there's a lot of stuff out on the internet that's self-published that is proof that an author is not the best editor for their own work. Okay, because they've missed things in the first chapter. They've missed, they've got glaring errors. They missed punctuation. They misspelled something. They've got a typo here. They got a typo there. All those things take away from the reading experience for the reader, and it takes the reader out of the story. That's what you don't want to do. Somebody picks up a book because they want to escape whatever they're dealing with and go into another world, and they're suspending their disbelief that this is real, and they're reading a story and they're imagining it in their mind, and they don't want to be finding mistakes. So that's why an editor is important to the overall process. So if you're going to self-publish, at least set aside some money, hire a good editor, ask around for, because there's some people that are terrible editors that think they're great editors. So make sure you get some good recommendations out there. Get the book edited before you submit it to a publisher or a literary agent.
And buy the WRITE'R'S ZEN, because it will help you a long way.
And buy the WRITE'R'S ZEN.
So
Yes.
I think critique partners too. So if you're self-publishing, and I think I talk about this in the WRITE'R'S ZEN too. If you're self-publishing, you should invest money to hire an editor for like copy editing and proofreading. Just because, but if you're sending to a literary agent, you don't have to hire an editor. So you could but somebody else has to read it, like a beta reader, critique partners, and there's a lot of things on Twitter too that a bunch of my authors, they found beta readers just on Twitter within the writing community. So as long as it's a second or third set of eyes on it, I think is good. But yeah, it's definitely beneficial to have more people read it and to pick out some plot points or things like that too, or things that they might want to. I mean, I think I've done this with a couple of your books too, and like just there's things that like, whoa, I want to know more about, and they were in the first draft. But yeah, it's good to get other people's opinions. But I always recommend never changing anything if you don't believe in that as your vision for the book. But if it's constructive criticism to enhance the story, then yes, that's great. But sometimes if someone's asking to make changes that completely changes the story, you just have to make sure that you're making changes because you believe in them. So I feel strongly about that.
Yeah, you have to stand your ground sometimes, but usually the things that editors have suggested that I change in my books, I've agreed with.
Yeah.
It makes the story better. I mean, when I first, turned Crimson Forest in, and my edits came back, and then, I fixed the things that they had asked of me. When the book was published and I read it, it was just like, wow.
Yeah.
I was like, I did that, but with help.
It was a good editor will make your story
amazing.
Better.
And it did. I mean, both of my books, I feel so blessed to have an editor that took the time, and I feel like that's really important. If you are going to self-publish, get a good editor, because realistically, when you are looking at your own work over and over and over, it's really hard to see simple mistakes, because you know how your story goes, and you're almost reading it while you're writing it.
Yeah.
The other major suggestion I can give to people is, if you don't love your book, you're going to get tired of reading it. Okay. And you shouldn't go into publishing anything if you don't love your book enough to love it the third or fourth or fifth or sixth time you read it, because that's an indication that there's something wrong with the story and the reader's not going to like it either.
Right.
You have to be able to find fresh things in your book, fresh ideas and everything. after reading it several times, because you're going to read it several times in the process of it being published and brought to the point where it's brought out as a book. So you'll find all the little flaws and all the little quirks in your writing, and everything that annoys you about your own writing is going to be exaggerated to the nth degree because you've read the book so many times. But then at the end of all that, you're going to read the book for the 12th time or whatever, and you're going to be 4 chapters in and you haven't wanted to change a thing. And you're going to go, wow, I really like this. It's flowing well. It's sounding good. It's sounding intelligent, as opposed to what I usually write. Yeah. And, if you get to that point, where you're 6 chapters in and you haven't wanted to change a thing, you've got a good book.
Yeah.
And it's perfectly natural for an author to read their own stuff and want to change everything. Okay. That happens. That's normal. It's not a defect. It's an attribute of being an author. And, you may never get to the point where you go 4 or 5 chapters into a book and not want to change anything. But if it's properly edited, I think it will. I think you'll get to that point.
I'm excited for your release date.
Oh, thanks.
I will be one of the first people to own your book. Just so I have it, I can show it off to the world. So
the release date is October 7th, so it's coming up shortly.
Yeah, I can't believe it.
A couple of weeks, October 7th, just in time to get it in the hands of everybody for NaNoWriMo.
Right.
So it's a good tie-in there. It's a great book. It's only improved since the last time I read it, I know. Because we have great editors at Pandamoon.
We do. Thank you, Rachel.
Rachel is the senior editor at Pandamoon. She kind of runs everything with the editing.
Amazing.
So, amazing.
Love Rachel.
Yeah.
We love you, Rachel.
Thank you, Rachel.
All right. Anything else I've forgotten? Oh, you can get the book on pre-order until October 1st. If you want a print copy of the book, you can get a 15% discount. There's a secret code that you got to type in that's not all that secret. But, if you go to pandamoonpublishing.com and go to the book page for Jessica's book, The WRITER'S ZEN, and you go to that page, it'll tell you the secret code to get your discount, and you can go ahead and place an order for it. Okay, and you can also do a pre-order if you have a Kindle. You can do a pre-order on Amazon. And unfortunately, Amazon doesn't allow you to do discounts on the pre-orders. Yeah. But that's the reason why we're offering a discount on the print copy on our website. So get the book. It's a good book. It doesn't take a terrible long time to read. It's not real dry material. It's well written. It's entertaining.
And it's helpful.
It's very helpful.
Thank you. That was the goal. And honestly, I mean, everybody enjoys talking to their authors, writers. But honestly, if anyone, I'm always on Twitter. So if anyone has questions or you hate the book, loves the book, let me know. I'm one of those people I like to know. So. And
your Twitter handle is capital J, capital N, capital R, Lit Author.
Yes, that is me. Thank you.
LITAUTHOR, all lowercase, Lit Author.
Mm-hmm.
I can never remember that either, and I just remembered it.
You just did it.
I'm so proud of you. No, that's.
So you know how to get in touch with her. Get in touch with her. Jess is a great person. She's a good sounding board. She'll point you in the right direction. All right. Thanks for being here. We'll see you in the Pandaverse later.
Yeah, thank you. It was great to see you guys.
Bye, guys.
All right. Have a great week. Bye-bye.
You too. Bye.